There's a career where the job description is classified, where the interview happens in a borrowed office with a man who won't give you his real name, where the background check includes your ex-girlfriend's neighbors, your college roommate's private opinions, and a polygraph that asks whether you've ever wanted to betray your country, and the machine decides if you're telling the truth. The salary is government scale, $65,000 to start, and the cost is everything else. The CIA employs approximately 21,000 people. The exact number is classified. The number of people who do what case officers do, recruit foreign nationals to commit treason on behalf of the United States, is a fraction of that. A small, specific, carefully selected fraction of people who share one characteristic above all others. They are exceptionally good at making people trust them. Everything else follows from that. Here's what it actually looks like. Every level, every number, every moment where the gap between who you are and who you're pretending to be becomes wide enough to fall into. Level 1. The recruit. 22 years old. A question in a quiet room. The first lie you tell is to yourself. You didn't apply. Nobody applies to this. You were identified by a professor who mentioned your name to someone, by a language test score that ended up in a database, by a summer abroad that put you in proximity to the kind of people this organization watches. Someone decided you were worth a conversation. The conversation happened in a borrowed office at a career fair. The man across the table knew your GPA, your language skills, and the name of your college girlfriend before you sat down. Have you ever considered government service? You're 22. You have $80,000 in student debt. The private sector wants you to sell financial products to people who don't want them. This man is offering something he can't fully describe, something that requires you to tell no one you had this conversation, starting immediately. You say yes. Of course you say yes. The gap between who you are and who you could become has just been given a very specific shape. The polygraph lasts 6 hours. Not because the technology requires 6 hours, because 6 hours of intimate questioning about your sexual history, your drug use, your financial situation, your foreign contacts, and your relationship with honesty creates a psychological condition, exhaustion, vulnerability, the sense that concealment is pointless, that produces more accurate answers than a well-rested person would give. You understand this afterward. During it, you just answer the questions. The background investigation visits your high school teachers, your college roommates, your parents' neighbors. People you haven't thought about in years are asked whether you've ever expressed anti-American sentiments. Your mother calls, confused. You tell her it's for a government job. This is technically true. You've already started. The acceptance letter arrives 6 months later. Report to a location in Virginia. Bring what's on the list. Tell no one where you're going. You tell your friends you got a job at the State Department. A desk job, nothing exciting. That's the first lie. It won't be the last. It won't be close to the last. But here's what nobody tells you at 22. The lies don't stay at work. They come home with you. They answer the phone when your mother calls on Sunday. The distance between what you know and what you can say starts small. It grows every year. By the time you understand what you signed up for, the distance is too wide to close.
Level 2. The trainee. 18 months. They teach you to lie so well you forget what the truth feels like. The training facility doesn't appear on any map. 9,000 acres in rural Virginia. They call it the farm. Your class? 30 people. Lawyers, military veterans, engineers, linguists, and a few people who seem completely unremarkable, which at this level almost certainly means they're not. You will spend 18 months together. Some of you will wash out. The ones who don't will never be the same as the ones who arrived. The shooting training is 10% of the curriculum. Hollywood got this wrong. You learn to draw a concealed weapon and put 2 rounds in a target in under 2 seconds. Not at a range, in simulated real environments, in crowds, in vehicles, in darkness. You learn to fight the way people who need to survive fights actually fight, efficiently, brutally, with the goal of ending the situation in seconds rather than winning it elegantly. The other 90% is tradecraft, the actual work. Surveillance detection. You walk through cities for hours, mapping your route against the patterns of everyone around you. A professional surveillance team follows you. Your job is to detect them, not to lose them, to detect them. The distinction matters. Losing a tail tells them you're trained. Detecting without reacting tells you what they know. You walk for 4 hours. You identify the team. You write the report. You do this 40 times until it's not a skill anymore. It's a reflex. Dead drops. You leave a package in a public place, a gap in a brick wall, a magnetic container under a park bench, a hollow rock by a hiking trail, and someone retrieves it without ever meeting you. No contact, no communication, no evidence that anything happened. You practice this until the gap between leaving something and nothing becomes invisible. Cover and legend. You become someone else, not a costume, a complete alternative identity backed by documents, employment history, references who answer the phone and confirm your story. You practice until you respond to your cover name without hesitation, until your cover biography feels more rehearsed than your real one, until the lie is the thing that comes naturally and the truth requires effort. The interrogation exercise is the worst thing you've ever experienced, and not because of what they do to you, because of what you discover about yourself during it. Concrete floor, lights that never turn off, no watch, no shoes, no belt. Interrogators who are not acting. 36 hours without sleep. They scream, they threaten, they use techniques designed by people who understand exactly how human beings break. You hold. You give them nothing. You stick to the legend until they pull you out. They tell you you passed. You feel something. Not pride exactly. Recognition. Recognition that you are capable of things you didn't know you were capable of. That the version of yourself who walked into this facility 18 months ago had a ceiling you've since gone through. The version of yourself who walks out is more capable, more controlled, and less knowable, even to yourself. This is not a side effect. This is the goal. Your first posting is a U.S. embassy in a country you studied in school but never expected to call home. Your cover is diplomatic. You have a title, a desk, business cards that list a job that doesn't reflect what you do. You attend the meetings a diplomat attends. You file the reports a diplomat files. The ambassador either doesn't know what you actually do or knows and has decided not to know. You don't discuss it. Your real office is a secure room inside the embassy. Your real boss is the chief of station. Your real job is to find people with secrets and convince them to give those secrets to you. The target development process takes months. You attend diplomatic receptions, conferences, cultural events, not socially, operationally. You are always working. You are looking for vulnerability, the official who drinks too much, the scientist whose marriage is failing, the military officer who is passed over for promotion and believes his country doesn't value him. The CIA recruitment framework has an acronym, MICE: money, ideology, compromise, ego. Every person who has ever betrayed their country did it for one of these reasons or some combination. Your job is to determine which one applies and then become the person who can provide it. You identify a target, a mid-level official in the host country's foreign ministry. Access to diplomatic cables, underpaid, recently had his pension reduced by a government austerity measure. You engineer a first meeting at a diplomatic reception, position yourself near him, make conversation that he remembers as natural and you remember as calculated. You meet again at a restaurant you know he frequents. What a coincidence! The friendship develops over 8 months. Dinners, drinks, long conversations about his government's failures to recognize his talents. You listen more than you talk. You agree more than you challenge. You are the best friend he's ever had. Attentive, interested, non-judgmental. You are also constructing a relationship that will end with him committing an act his government considers treason. The pitch, the moment you ask him directly, comes after a dinner where he's had enough to drink to be honest but not enough to question his judgment. You are precise. You frame it as partnership, as mutual interest, as the natural extension of a friendship he already values. He is silent for a long time. He asks what you want. You tell him. He says he needs to think. 3 days later, he calls the number you gave him. He is your first asset. You will handle him for 2 years before he's transferred to a posting with less access. You will brief your replacement on his psychology, his motivations, his vulnerabilities, the complete interior map of a human being you spend 8 months constructing. Your replacement will use that map to continue running him. You will never see him again. You will think about him for the rest of your career. You've had 3 postings now. 2 in regions that required your Mandarin, 1 in Eastern Europe where you ran an asset inside the government for 18 months before the operation was compromised, not because of your mistake, by a penetration at headquarters that you weren't told about until it was too late to warn him. He made it out, not because of anything you did, because he was careful in ways you trained him to be, and careful was enough this time. It isn't always enough. You know this. You think about the ones where careful wasn't enough. You have 2 of those. The expulsion happened at your second posting. The host country's counterintelligence service identified your cover, declared you persona non grata, and gave you 72 hours to leave the country. You packed 2 bags, you destroyed your operational files, you flew home. At headquarters, they put the expulsion in your file as operational experience, which it is. Knowing how a surveillance detection operation against a trained counterintelligence service feels from the inside, knowing the specific quality of attention that means you've been made, is knowledge you cannot acquire any other way. You are more capable for having been expelled. The asset you were running before the expulsion was transferred to a new officer and never compromised. You count this as the best possible outcome of a bad situation. The moral math at this level is something you do constantly and never resolve. The asset you recruited last year is a government official who has a family, a wife, 2 children. He provides information that has real intelligence value. He does this because you identified that his ideology was the genuine article. He actually believes in what the US represents, and because you spent 6 months becoming the person he trusted most. His motivation is real. Your friendship is false. You are using a real thing to sustain a false one. If he's caught, his government will imprison him, possibly execute him. His wife will lose her husband. His children will lose their father. His motivation for doing this is genuine. Your role in producing that motivation was calculated. Both things are true simultaneously. You don't discuss this with anyone. You process it alone, which is the only option available to you. Which is the thing about this career that nobody in the recruitment office mentioned and that you wouldn't have believed if they had. Level 5. The Chief of Station, 44 years old. The most powerful American in a building full of powerful Americans. Nobody knows. You run the station now. The ambassador knows you exist. He knows your cover title. He attends some of the meetings you attend. He does not know what happens in the secure room, and he has made a professional decision not to ask questions whose answers would complicate his relationship with the host government. You manage 12 officers, 40-some assets across the country, and liaison relationships with 3 different intelligence services, one of which is sharing information with you while simultaneously running an operation you've identified but can't act on without revealing how you identified it. The second is providing useful counterterrorism intelligence and is also almost certainly penetrated by the service of a country you're actively working against. The third is run by a chief who you've worked with for 6 years and trust within very specific limits that you've never articulated to him, because articulating them would require explaining why you know what you know. This is the geography of the job at chief level. Nothing is clean. Everything is useful and compromised simultaneously. Your decisions are not between good and bad. They are between different distributions of risk across outcomes you cannot fully predict. An asset reports credible intelligence about a planned attack. The information is incomplete. You know it's coming. You don't know when or exactly where. You have 3 options. Share with the host country's service and risk exposing your source. Hold and wait for more specificity, risk the attack happening. Share selectively, enough to enable interdiction, not enough to expose the source. You choose the third. The cell is disrupted, your asset survives. You write a cable that documents your reasoning. It goes into a file that nobody will read for 25 years. Nobody thanks you. The disrupted attack is a statistic in a threat assessment briefing. The decision that produced it is classified. The weight of it is yours. You drink more than you should. Not dramatically, consistently. A specific amount over a specific number of years that your doctor notices and you acknowledge and don't change. Your second marriage ended for the same reasons your first one did. Not infidelity, not cruelty, but absence. Not physical absence, the kind that's harder to name. You are present at dinner and unreachable at dinner. The person sitting across the table cannot know what you're actually thinking about and wouldn't be cleared to know if they asked. The loneliness at this level is structural. It is built into the job. You cannot discuss your work with anyone outside the building. Your friends are all in the service. Your social life is the station. You are the most isolated person in every room you walk into, and you are very good at not showing it. The work matters. You tell yourself this every morning. People are alive because of decisions you made. This is true. People are also dead because of decisions you made. This is also true. You live with both simultaneously, which is the specific moral condition of this career, and which cannot be prepared for in advance.
Level 6, the ghost, 55 years old, retired. Your brain didn't get the memo. You retired, technically. The habits are permanent. You run surveillance detection routes when you drive to the grocery store, not consciously, automatically, the way you breathe. You notice the car that's been behind you for 3 turns. You sit with your back to the wall in restaurants. You assess every stranger who makes eye contact as a potential contact before your conscious mind has processed what you're doing. You cannot turn it off. You've tried. After 3 years of retirement, you've accepted that the switch doesn't go the other direction. The training didn't give you skills. It rewired the way you process the world. That rewiring doesn't reverse. Your neighbor thinks you worked at the State Department. Your children's friends think you were a diplomat who traveled a lot. Your golf partners think you're the most boring person they've ever met. Good. That's the point. That's always been the point. A former colleague was found dead last year, ruled a suicide. You attended the funeral. You stood with the others, former officers who knew what the work cost and didn't need to say it. Nobody talked about why. The transition out of this life destroys people as effectively as the work itself. The mission was the structure. Without the mission, what's left is everything the mission displaced, all the normal things you didn't build because you were building this instead. You think about the assets, the ones still running, handled now by officers who replaced you, the ones who were compromised after you left, the ones who are dead. You think about the one you lost. The cable was 3 lines, bureaucratic language describing a human catastrophe that you were responsible for and cannot discuss with anyone who wasn't cleared. You carry them. You carry all of them, the living and the dead. The phone rings. Old number. Familiar voice. Consulting basis. Nothing operational, just your perspective. You should say no. When do you need me? Closing the line you drew at 22. At 22, in a borrowed office, a man asked you a question. You drew a line through your life that day. Everything before, everything after. The person who tells the truth and the person who lies for a living. You thought the line was between those 2 people. It wasn't. The line was between the version of yourself who understood what you were choosing and the version who didn't. Nobody understands what they're choosing at 22. That's not a failure, that's 22. Right now, at a university career fair, in a private office borrowed for the afternoon, a young man is sitting across from someone who knows his name, his GPA, his language scores, his summer abroad. The man across the table doesn't have business cards. Have you ever considered government service? The young man will say yes. He'll say yes before he fully processes the question. He'll say yes because the gap between who he is and who he could become has just been given a very specific shape, and that shape is irresistible at 22. He won't understand what he's agreeing to, not really. He'll understand it at 28 in a foreign city, watching a frightened man decide to commit treason because of a friendship that was constructed to produce exactly that decision. He'll understand it at 34, writing a cable about an asset who didn't make it out. He'll understand it at 44, sitting alone in a secure room at midnight, carrying decisions that will stay classified for longer than he'll be alive.
He'll spend 30 years becoming one of the most capable, most isolated, most consequential people in a building full of people nobody knows about. He'll do things that matter and things he can't justify, and things that are both simultaneously. He'll be very good at it. That's the job. Not the movies, not the car chases and the clean moral victories and the villain who gets what he deserves at the end. The real version. The one where the line between right and wrong is drawn by people working with incomplete information under time pressure in foreign cities, and the outcomes are measured in classified files that won't be opened for a generation. You chose it. At 22, in a borrowed office, you chose it. Most days, you'd choose it again. Most days.